cooperation.
Good to see you, man.
Students are facing an unprecedented diversity of challenges, both in their academic and social life. Are your children getting prepared for these new challenges? Do you aspire to educate your children so one day they will become academically enriched and culturally developed? Brighton International School, BIS, is your children's desirable destination. Accredited by Cambridge Assessment International, BIS is committed to delivering quality and holistic education. We are determined to develop the full potential of our young generation.
Cambridge International programs inspire students to love learning, helping them discover new abilities and a wider world. We are proud to be part of the world's largest international community schools, preparing students for life with Cambridge International qualifications that are valued by universities and employers around the world.
With a vision to nurture, stimulate, and inspire learners to achieve excellence, the school aims to nurture students through our core values, known as LEARN. Leaders of tomorrow, excellent culture, accomplishing success, respect for each other, navigate for better future endeavors. Brighton's core academic program, which integrates Cambridge curriculum with our signature Bright Leader program, ensures that Brighton students meet the high standards of new world challenges through teaching, learning, and child development.
This school is just amazing. I like the comfortable environment here in the beautiful classroom. Our teachers are just brilliant. They are very friendly. It helps us to understand the class better.
Our Bright Leader program is divided in 2 stages. In the Bright program, during the primary school, students will learn the values and skills that lead to interpersonal development, great self-management, growth, and maturity. The Leader program in the lower secondary focuses on self-development, ethics, leadership, entrepreneurship, and the realization of their unique aptitudes. The Bright Leader program is a life skill and leadership program which prepares Brighton students to become the global leaders of tomorrow. We provide modern facilities, including classrooms with a conducive learning environment, computer labs with up-to-date instruments, rich libraries with a diversity of books, science lab with modern equipment, a cafeteria with healthy food, multi-purpose hall for cultural programs, transportation system with comfortable buses, sports facilities to develop a healthy generation of students. Beyond an excellent academic environment, Brighton International School offers a rich selection of extracurricular activities designed to enhance our students' development.
We're having fun today. Thank you, Brighton.
The mission of Brighton is to facilitate learners to achieve their full potential, leading them to become the global leaders of tomorrow.
Brighton Education provides opportunities for social and emotional learning, collaboration, and personal discovery. Students need to be able to acquire knowledge, but also be able to apply skills, collaborate, and think creatively.
As a part of its community and social responsibility, BIS Scholarship Program offers scholarships to meritorious and financially needy students.
I feel really good about sending my child here because the academic standards are high and this place has a safe learning environment.
Brighton International School is strategically located in the heart of Kuala Lumpur, which makes it convenient to drop off and pick up your children. With all these modern and up-to-date facilities and opportunities, with students from 27 countries, BIS is your educational destination.
Our secondary curriculum is a skill-focused program which offers very wide range and balanced curriculum, and it helps students to get wider experience and enhance their critical thinking skills, communication skills, and leadership skills.
The admissions process is made easy with 4 simple steps available on our website www.brighton.edu.my. Brighton International School, the destination for future leaders. For admission, send your inquiries to admission@brighton.edu.my. Students are facing an unprecedented diversity of challenges, both in their academic and social life. Are your children getting prepared for these new challenges? Do you aspire to educate your children so one day they will become academically enriched and culturally developed? Brighton International School, BIS, is your children's desirable destination. Accredited by Cambridge Assessment International, BIS is committed to delivering quality and holistic education. We are determined to develop the full potential of our young generation.
Cambridge International programs inspire students to love learning, helping them discover new abilities and a wider world. We are proud to be part of the world's largest international community schools, preparing students for life with Cambridge International qualifications that are valued by universities and employers around the world.
With a vision to nurture, stimulate, and inspire learners to achieve excellence, the school aims to nurture students through our core values, known as LEARN. Leaders of tomorrow, excellent culture, accomplishing success, respect for each other, navigate for better future endeavors. Brighton's core academic program, which integrates Cambridge curriculum with our signature Bright Leader program, ensures that Brighton students meet the high standards of new world challenges through teaching, learning, and child development.
This school is just amazing. I like the comfortable environment here in the beautiful classroom. Our teachers are just brilliant. They are very friendly. It helps us to understand the class better.
Our Bright Leader program is divided in 2 stages. In the Bright program, during the primary school, students will learn the values and skills that lead to interpersonal development, great self-management, growth, and maturity. The Leader program in the lower secondary focuses on self-development, ethics, leadership, entrepreneurship, and the realization of their unique aptitudes. The Bright Leader program is a life skill and leadership program which prepares Brighton students to become the global leaders of tomorrow. We provide modern facilities, including classrooms with a conducive learning environment, computer labs with up-to-date instruments, rich libraries with a diversity of books, science lab with modern equipment, a cafeteria with healthy food, multi-purpose hall for cultural programs, transportation system with comfortable buses, sports facilities to develop a healthy generation of students. Beyond an excellent academic environment, Brighton International School offers a rich selection of extracurricular activities designed to enhance our students' development.
We are having fun today. Thank you, Brighton.
The mission of Brighton is to facilitate learners to achieve their full potential, leading them to become the global leaders of tomorrow.
Brighton education provides opportunities for social and emotional learning, collaboration, and personal discovery. Students need to be able to acquire knowledge, but also be able to apply skills, collaborate, and think creatively.
As a part of its community and social responsibility, BIS Scholarship Program offers scholarships to meritorious and financially needy students.
I feel really good about sending my child here because the academic standards are high and this place has a safe learning environment.
Brighton International School is strategically located in the heart of Kuala Lumpur, which makes it convenient to drop off and pick up your children. With all these modern and up-to-date facilities and opportunities, with students from 27 countries, BIS is your educational destination.
Our secondary curriculum is a skill-focused program which offers very wide range and balanced curriculum, and it helps students to get wider experience and enhance their critical thinking skills, communication skills, and leadership skills.
The admissions process is made easy with 4 simple steps available on our website www.brighton.edu.my. Brighton International School, the destination for future leaders. For admission, send your inquiries to admission@brighton.edu.my. Students are facing an unprecedented diversity of challenges, both in their academic and social life. Are your children getting prepared for these new challenges? Do you aspire to educate your children so one day they will become academically enriched and culturally developed? Brighton International School, BIS, is your children's desirable destination. Accredited by Cambridge Assessment International, BIS is committed to delivering quality and holistic education. We are determined to develop the full potential of our young generation.
Cambridge International programs inspire students to love learning, helping them discover new abilities and a wider world. We are proud to be part of the world's largest international community schools, preparing students for life with Cambridge International qualifications that are valued by universities and employers around the world.
With a vision to nurture, stimulate, and inspire learners to achieve excellence, the school aims to nurture students through our core values, known as LEARN. Leaders of tomorrow, excellent culture, accomplishing success, respect for each other, navigate for better future endeavors. Brighton's core academic program, which integrates Cambridge curriculum with our signature Bright Leader program, ensures that Brighton students meet the high standards of new world challenges through teaching, learning, and child development.
This school is just amazing. I like the comfortable environment here in the beautiful classroom. Our teachers are just brilliant. They are very friendly. It helps us to understand the class better.
Our Bright Leader program is divided in 2 stages. In the Bright program, during the primary school, students will learn the values and skills that lead to interpersonal development, great self-management, growth, and maturity. The Leader program in the lower secondary focuses on self-development, ethics, leadership, entrepreneurship, and the realization of their unique aptitudes. The Bright Leader program is a life skill and leadership program which prepares Brighton students to become the global leaders of tomorrow. We provide modern facilities, including classrooms with a conducive learning environment, computer labs with up-to-date instruments, rich libraries with a diversity of books, science lab with modern equipment, a cafeteria with healthy food, multi-purpose hall for cultural programs, transportation system with comfortable buses, sports facilities to develop a healthy generation of students. Beyond an excellent academic environment, Brighton International School offers a rich selection of extracurricular activities designed to enhance our students' development.
We are having fun today. Thank you, Brighton.
The mission of Brighton is to facilitate learners to achieve their full potential, leading them to become the global leaders of tomorrow.
Brighton education provides opportunities for social and emotional learning, collaboration, and personal discovery. Students need to be able to acquire knowledge, but also be able to apply skills, collaborate, and think creatively.
As a part of its community and social responsibility, BIS Scholarship Program offers scholarships to meritorious and financially needy students.
Here, because the academic standards are high, and this place has a safe learning environment.
Brighton International School is strategically located in the heart of Kuala Lumpur, which makes it convenient to drop off and pick up your children. With all these modern and up-to-date facilities and opportunities, with students from 27 countries, BIS is your educational destination.
Our secondary curriculum is a skill-focused program which offers very wide range and balanced curriculum, and it helps students to get wider experience and enhance their critical thinking skills, communication skills, and leadership skills.
The admissions process is made easy with 4 simple steps available on our website www.brighton.edu.my. Brighton International School, the destination for future leaders. For admission, send your inquiries to admission@brighton.edu.my.
Hi everyone. Assalamualaikum. Good afternoon. Thank you so much, guys, for tuning in. My name is Afrina. So I am the moderator for today. A bit of background of myself. I am a science teacher in Brighton International School. I did a degree in psychology as well as a master's in cognitive neuroscience. And yes, I'm going to be the moderator for today. Of course, for the topic today would be children's mental well-being during COVID-19. So it is indeed a very important topic to address about. But of course, before we begin, let's kind of introduce our speakers for today, starting with child psychologist Miss Katyana, as well as youth mentor Mr. Aiman Azlan as well. So Miss Katyana, hello. Good morning. Good afternoon.
Oh, I'm just realizing my microphone was off and I was talking the whole time. Hi, good afternoon.
Hi. Do you want to introduce yourself for a bit before we begin?
Sure. So hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. For those of you who I haven't met yet, my name is Katyana Azman. I am the resident child psychologist here at Pantai Hospital Kuala Lumpur. I'm calling you from my office today. And part of my responsibility or part of my roles as a child psychologist is I'm involved in the assessment process for children with neurodevelopmental learning and also mood-related disorders or delays. And I'm also involved in the intervention portion of things. So that's kind of what I do.
That's great. Thank you so much, Miss Katyana.
No problem.
Can we proceed on with our youth mentor for today, Mr. Aiman Azlan? Hello.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Aiman Azlan. I come from Perlis in my home office. Not that exciting. My main job right now is as a youth mentor, meaning I guide the youth, I help the youth with whatever issues that they have. So usually what I do is I listen to their problems and I try to help them as much as I can. Not as a counselor because I'm not there yet. I'm a counseling student. But one day I'll become a full-time counselor and I'll open my own center one day. Hopefully.
That's definitely a good idea. We'll definitely pray for you, Mr. Aiman, for sure.
Thank you.
All right. So everyone, once again, for those who just came, thank you so much for tuning in. So we're going to talk about children's mental well-being during COVID-19. So let's start off with this topic about COVID-19 itself. It has been very difficult, hasn't it, right? Everyone is experiencing so much difficulties. Adults, it's regardless of your socioeconomic background, your race or your gender, everyone is going through something right now. And the good thing, even, I'm not sure, what do you think, Ms. Katyana, Mr. Aiman, but I feel like in Malaysia, we have so much support, so much organizations that are really trying to raise the awareness of taking care of our mental health. And that's what I feel both of you are also doing, which I really appreciate. But however, the topic that we want to cover for today is the fact that not really much is talked about mental health or well-being in children. So let's kind of start off with Ms. Katyana first. So Ms. Katyana, what is actually defined as mental well-being or mental health? And what are the latest findings when it comes to mental health among children?
Okay, thanks so much, Afrina. So, mental health is something that we try to educate a lot of people about. It is similar to physical health, right? So when an individual is considered as healthy, it doesn't just cover whether or not they have biological or medical conditions. It also includes sort of their mental health or their psychological well-being, as well as sort of their spiritual well-being and how they're functioning within society. So it is definitely something that we need to kind of consider as part and parcel of our physical health or our physical well-being as well. But within the context of sort of mental well-being, we're talking about someone's emotional state, someone's ability to function and think and interact sort of in a logical and typical or what we call appropriate level, given how old they are and the demands that their life adds upon them. And I think that the COVID-19 pandemic has kind of, as you mentioned, made things extremely challenging for everyone, right? But I think what makes it more additionally challenging for children is the fact that they, as a demographic, turn to the adults in order to give them guidance and in terms of setting the stage for what or how to respond to certain things. But we are currently functioning in an environment where we as adults don't know the answers. We can't give our children the certainties, and oftentimes our own uncertainty is reflected in them. So it is definitely a very difficult time. It is a very anxiety-inducing time. And because they are, depending on how old they are, they lack the life experience to be able to reason that this is something that's going to one day pass. This is not the first pandemic for some of us, right? And so we know that the outcome will be that we have to be safe and we have to be careful, but that eventually we will resume life as per normal. But these children are going through this for the first time, and that's something that they probably don't understand. We don't yet have statistics on the increase of mental health challenges since the COVID pandemic, because it's quite recent. But the latest statistic that we do have from the National Morbidity Survey done 2 years ago in 2019 indicates that there are about 450,000 children in Malaysia who who have been diagnosed with mental health challenges. And remember that a survey is a voluntary process. So we do in the clinical field believe that it is something that's a lot higher than what is reported. But it is something that's affecting children, absolutely.
Yeah, very, very good answer, Ms. Katyana. That is true, actually. There is around 400,000 children that are currently experiencing. But again, I do agree on the fact that those are just surveys, people that actually reach out and try to help their children who are indeed showing some signs of mental distress. But clearly, there's a lot more children who are unfortunately not being able to be treated or consulted in that regards. So yeah, that's a very good one. Mr. Aiman, how about you? What are your thoughts in this pandemic, how it's impacting children?
Well, I have children of my own. I have a 5-year-old and a 1.5-year-old. Actually, he's 6 now. Sorry, he's a 6-year-old and 1.5-year-old. So I see firsthand the effects of the pandemic on them, even though they're just kids. And I think as a parent, what I have learned from my own learnings, reading books, and from my own observation is that when it comes to kids, children, like 5, 6, below 10 years old, they are very much in tune with the parents. That's what I saw. That's what I see. Meaning that if the parents are emotionally well, and the kids will most probably be emotionally well. Because they're kids. They don't have self-regulation yet. They don't have their own identity yet. They're still in the phase of being attached to their parents. So emotionally, they will basically absorb whatever we give them, right? I mean, if we are overwhelmed, and understandably so with the pandemic, right? This is something that happens once every 100 years. The last pandemic was in 1960.
It was quite a long time ago, yes.
The Spanish flu, right? The Spanish, that was the last pandemic. And we have epidemics that happen after that, but not a pandemic. So the last one happened 100 years ago, and a handful of us were alive back then. So this is a totally new experience for the majority of us. And for the adults in the room, this is tough for us. And if this is tough for us as the adults who we assume have self-regulation, can regulate their own emotions already, then what can we say about the children? They need more help more than us. And the fact that we don't talk about mental health in children the same way we talk about mental health in adults show that we'll probably need to balance out the equation more. Because for kids, because of their brain development not fully developed yet, they're still in the phase of like playing and learning, and they don't know the world as much as we do. They need more guidance in terms of how to deal with their emotions. And who else will give that guidance other than the adults in their life, namely the parents, and yes, the teachers as well. So I guess the main idea here is for the adults in the room to have their emotion in check, because children will absorb whatever that we give them. So that's what I learned as a father myself, and that's what I observe from others as well.
Yes, that's a very true statement. In fact, parents are one of the most responsible adults in terms of monitoring their children's mental well-being. We are the examples, technically. I don't have children of my own, so I might not be able to relate that. But hearing your story, Mr. Aiman, that is very true. And we already talked about the struggles when it comes to children given in this pandemic. And in fact, this pandemic is all about social isolation, isn't it? They have to study remotely in their rooms. They're no longer able to come to school, which is why I feel also this topic is quite interesting. It's very important to be addressed. As a science teacher myself, actually, there are quite a number of students that always come to me and say, "Teacher, I absolutely hate this. When are we going to come back to school? It's so boring at home. Like, I have to just look at my siblings. We fight all the time. I can't meet my friends." So it is definitely impacting, and which is also, now that we kind of understood that, in fact, children also have mental health issues as well that needs to be addressed, which goes to our next session after this as well, everyone. We're going to have Miss Katyana talk about more on the symptoms of how do we identify if children is experiencing some level of mental distress, and we also want to know as well, how can we help them? So that will be on the third session. So before we have our break for today, I do want to let everyone know that Miss Katyana is only joining for our first half of the session. So if you guys have any question directed for her, please make sure that you inform in the comments below, and make sure that we'll have it addressed very soon. Okay, so Miss Katyana and Mr. Aiman, we shall have a 1 minute break, and then we'll get on to the next session. All right, thank you. All right, hi, welcome back everyone. Let's kind of go on to the next session, okay? So far we've talked about children experiencing mental health issues, but for right now as well, we want to identify the symptoms. So Miss Katyana, you have been a child psychologist for, I believe, 8 years, is it? Or more than that? How long was it?
I think if we don't count 2020 as a year, which I think a lot of people are saying, they're not going to acknowledge 2020 as a year. It's been 8. This is my 9th year practicing here in Malaysia, have been lucky enough to have worked with quite a fair number of kids since then.
Wow, that's great. That's amazing. And before we start onto the question, I'm just a bit curious. So, what kind of children have you actually consulted with?
So a pretty wide variety, I must say. So when I began my journey here at Pantai Hospital, I think the main sort of function for my presence was to assist in the assessments of children on the autism spectrum, because it is an issue that is in very high demand. But unfortunately, we only have literally a handful of developmental pediatricians in Malaysia who have the capacity to formally diagnose a child with a developmental delay. So most of these families are waiting waiting no less than a year to get their child assessed. And depending on how old the child is, when they start noticing challenges, that year can be, can make a huge difference with regards to the child going to school and getting the right support. So I was brought in here to help with that flow, because we do have a developmental PED here at Pantai. And so I was initially brought in to help with the assessments. But as the years have worn on, yes, I still do a lot of academic assessments for schools like yours, where we do assessments for things like learning disabilities or learning challenges and developmental issues. But a big chunk, I would have to say, of my clients currently are those who are coming to me for therapy for things like anxiety and depression. That's probably about 60 to 70% of my clients I'm seeing for those things.
Okay, yeah, okay, that's good. Thank you. So now that when we want to talk about mental health in general, this can be both adults and children as well. We know that there's two factors that are impacting this. It could be genetics, you are partially are born into it, or at the same time, most of it is also affected by environmental factors as well.
Yes.
So now that in some way, of course, this issue has been ongoing for so long, but because once again, the pandemic has happened, it is definitely affecting children, given that they're not able to go to schools, for example. So it's impacting them to a different level, actually, compared to before the pandemic happened. So, Ms. Katyana, based on your experience as a child psychologist, how do we identify children's symptoms? Because I believe it's not as easy to be detected as compared to adults, right?
No, absolutely. And I think the main thing as well is that a lot of the criteria that we do use, because we all have sort of a standard book that we follow of all the different symptoms and criteria. And even the list that you find on Google, oftentimes these are lists that were created for the adult population. And so you will not necessarily see the same presentation of things in the pediatric or the child and adolescent group as you would with adults. So it is a common question that teachers and parents ask me all the time, right? I'm not seeing these things that I'm reading on Google, right? Like, how do I know for sure? And so the one thing I tell parents are look for changes, right? So the changes can mean anything. It can be changes to their temperament, so their mood structure, how they are responding to things, how they're talking to you, changes in their eating habits, their sleeping patterns, changes in their socialization skills. Anytime you're seeing a child behave differently for a consistent period, so not like one day they're like this and then the next day they're fine, but more sort of like 2 weeks or more, so a pretty consistent duration. If you're seeing these changes pretty consistently, and also if these changes are starting to impact on their ability to function at the level that they need to. So say, for example, we're looking at a 5-year-old, right? A 5-year-old may not necessarily have a lot of homework that they have to do. A 5-year-old is more play-based versus a 17-year-old, for example. And so if you have a 5-year-old who is now showing no interest in his or her toys or the games that they normally play, not wanting to socialize with other kids, kind of just wants to seclude themselves, those are indications that they're no longer functioning at the level that they need to. Now, if you take those criteria and you transpose it to a 17 or 18-year-old, a lot of times I get parents say, well, I'm quite happy my child doesn't want to play video games because it means he or she can study. But you have to remember that for a young person, socialization, play, these are all age-appropriate, important milestones. And so if your child is struggling with something that prevents them from being able to engage in these things, those are really big red flags. So instead of kind of focusing on specific symptoms that you get off the internet, more importantly is to look for changes that are consistent and that do impact upon the child's functioning. So these are 3 main criteria that I give all parents or teachers who are concerned about the children in their life.
Yes, that is true. Thank you so much, Ms. Katyana. That is actually true. And even in schools, actually, it's not really just about parents. Even teachers are able to identify these changes. There are, personally, as a science teacher as well, teaching these students, there have been a few of them, actually, that not only have reached out, but they also have kind of understood that there's a very drastic change in their academic performance as well. So it's not really, of course, we definitely really care about children's academic performance, students in general, but at the same time, you do want to emphasize on their general mental well-being as well. And given this pandemic, given that they've been in school like from home, that is, I would say, roughly around 5 months now. So it's quite a long time already. And unfortunately, some of them are already showing signs of mental distress. And it is something that I hope parents who are listening here as well, and teachers, that you guys may benefit from the symptoms of what Miss Katyana already mentioned. Thank you so much, Miss Katyana. Which kind of goes to the next question as well. But before that, Mr. Aiman, would you like to add anything as well for this topic?
Yes, I was taking notes, by the way, while Miss Katyana was speaking. This is important for me personally as a father. I have a 6-year-old, so I am looking for signs where he's not behaving as he normally do. So it is important for me personally. So thank you, Miss Katyana. But what I would like to add, and this is not anything different, it's just a rephrasing of what Miss Katyana already said. As a parent, as an adult, basically, when we see a child displaying distress, right? Showing that they have an issue or a problem, I understand it's very easy to dismiss it as just a childish issue, because it is a childish issue. We're talking about children, right?
Yes, yes.
But try to look at it from their point of view. Their childish issue, even though it's nothing for us, it's everything for them.
It's everything
Because
for them, exactly.
At that age, at that tender age, that issue that you see as small is huge for them.
Yes.
It's like you worry about paying the mortgage.
Yes.
The same way they're stressing about their toys like that.
Yes, exactly.
Okay? It's the same level. It's just that for them at age 5, that's the biggest thing that they worry about. That is their stress. That is their anxiety. For us, it's the bigger things like, mortgage and paying debt, paying the rent and so on.
Yeah.
So we have to understand that these challenges, they are proportional to the people facing those challenges. And since we're talking about children and we as the adults, our childhood is very long time ago. So probably we forget that once upon a time, we too had this distress and it was a big deal for us, right?
Yes. Yes.
But then as we grow up, we kind of forget that, these small things that are small now, it was a very big thing once upon a time. And for our child right now, this is their biggest challenge. And we have to show empathy towards that. So when we see our children, let's say all this while, my 5-year-old, my 6-year-old, he's playing around, he's like jumping up and down, he's happy, he's a child having a blast. And then suddenly he stops playing. He's just being quiet over there, just not doing anything. Yes. I have to be honest, as a parent, there's a part of me that feels, oh my God, thank God, oh, he stops playing.
Yes, that is true.
I can do my work, I can do this, my son doesn't disturb me. But look at it from his point of view.
Yeah.
He's not having a good time. Yeah. He's having an emotional issue, probably an emotional breakdown that he doesn't know how to handle, right? He doesn't have the capacity to handle it yet. So he's relying on us, the adults, to help him deal with those emotional issues. So even though, I get it, you work from home, when your child is now quiet, you feel a bit at ease, but at the same time, be alert. Be alert that, certain changes that are not normal for your child, right? Your child's normal behavior, right? Whatever that's not normal for your child, be alert and pay close attention to those things.
Yes.
You might be able to save your child's childhood if you do that.
Yeah, that's a very good point, Mr. Aiman. That is actually true. And also, I want to ask Ms. Katyana as well about one question, because given that this is also apart from the pandemic, of course, we're talking about the children's general mental well-being, but do you think there is a type of parenting style that might have facilitated these children, for example, to experience more mental distress? Like, one example that I can give is, it's very common because we we Malaysians, we have a very strong collectivistic culture. So we really want to, like, if we have children, like most of us would really want to compare our children's performances with other children, for example. And then we also have social media. So right now, even my students at a very young age, they already have lots of platforms such as TikTok, for example. So do you think do you think parents, like how they raise their children, have a definite, a big impact on their general mental well-being, Ms. Katyana?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's not a very it's not a very diplomatic thing for me to talk about, because I think that a lot of the families that I work with, moms and dads often feel very defensive bringing their child here because they feel that, you know, I'm going to be blaming them in some shape or form for their child's condition. But the reality of it is very much so that you know, that there is a biological factor, right? Some conditions are just not about the environment. So children can actually become depressed or anxious because of biological changes within them due to underlying medical conditions, due to puberty. So these are all things that are happening internally and not about the world around them. So the biggest mistake I hear parents make is, well, my child is X years old. What does he or she have to be anxious about? What does she have to be depressed about?
Yeah, exactly.
He has to be depressed about, because I mean, they don't have a, you know, like Mr. Aiman was saying, like, they don't have a mortgage, they don't have, you know, to pay bills or meet deadlines, you know, so why are they distressed? But again, taking a page out of Mr. Aiman's book, is that at the end of the day, this is major to them, right? And so we kind of have to be more empathetic and kinder to our kids about that. But going back to what you asked, it is very, very reasonable to say that there is a strong connection between parenting styles or the type of parenting that you that you do with your children, and the development of more distress within the household, which increases the child's risk towards sort of mental health challenges. So parents who are more authoritative, meaning my way or the highway, right? You do this because I said so, not because there's any reasoning behind it. Inconsistent with your parenting. So if you have a bad day, you're going to be harsher on your child. And you kind of take it out on your child, which I think is pretty common, unfortunately, given the lockdown and everyone's working from home in tight quarters. And so parents are kind of like unintentionally often kind of taking it out on their kids when their kids are being a bit fussier. So when those are all things that we know are negatively impacting upon our child's mental health. And because they do not have the neurological maturity and emotional maturity to be able to rationalize that away and go, well, you know, mommy and daddy just had a bad day today, so it doesn't matter. Because they don't have that skill, it is going to be something that they carry with them, and it is going to be something that affects them, right? So this is not even including the really negative type of parenting, sort of borderlining abuse and neglect. Those have really bad consequences. But even sort of just the day-to-day things, invalidating your child's emotions. So if a child comes to you telling you that they feel sad or scared about something, and parents often, and unfortunately we do this a lot in Asian culture, where we tell our children, like, it's no big deal, get over it. Look at mommy, look at daddy, we're fine. You know, like, we're fine with it, so you should be too. Kind of invalidating and dismissing their emotions, because we as adults have the life experience to go, well, realistically, if my friend doesn't want to be my friend, I'm not going to die, right? We've lived through that. And so we can be a lot more dismissive, but they're going through it for the very first time. And so when parents kind of take that approach where they're very sort of authoritative, they discipline with no reason and no explanation behind it, they kind of are very inconsistent with their parenting, those are all really bad combinations.
Yeah, that is very true, Ms. Katyana. I think generally parents do have to be more aware in terms of what they speak, how they generally treat their children as well. I think that as much as, of course, what you've already addressed, their children, what do they know of, right? But at the same time, it is generally when it comes to mental health, especially in young adults, usually they have the therapist who have to go back all the way from childhood. So it's something that I feel is is a big responsibility for parents, not only to provide financially as well, but to make sure that their well-being is taken care of. So thank you so much for your insight on that. And of course, we are reaching the end for our session with Miss Katyana. So before that, I do have looked at a few questions here. Thank you, everyone. They are very interesting. And there's one question, however, that I feel Miss Katyana, you can address. So, okay. So Miss Mila Aini Balkis said, being a parent is a daily challenge and faced with the realities of COVID-19, social distancing, and self-quarantine. It may be a struggle. So for parents, what is the best way to be a parent to help our child to stay in a good mind and a healthy mind? Which is something that you've kind of already addressed, right? So maybe you can summarize that again as well.
My sort of favorite term to parents is do unto your children as you would like to be treated, right? So if you feel that you would not respond well to somebody who invalidates how you feel and diminishes how you feel and tells you that you have no right to feel stressed or sad because there are other people in the world who are suffering more than you, also a very common thing I hear a lot of parents say, that kids should not feel distressed because there are kids in other parts of the world who don't have food and clothing and all that. And so you shouldn't be. So if you have somebody kind of give you that statement and it's not something that really makes you feel all too good about yourself, don't do them to your kids. That's kind of a main thing that I tell parents. So as Mr. Aiman was saying earlier, our kids look to us. Our kids rely on us to be able to give them guidance on how to survive and how to function in this setting. So if you are somebody who is portraying that, oh, when I'm having a bad day and I'm angry, I can take it on everyone else, don't be surprised if your child starts doing the same after a while. I've had parents come to me and say that, I don't understand why my child's being so aggressive. And then when we go through it, the parents will say, well, yeah, I'm also aggressive sometimes, but I have a reason.
It's a typical answer, isn't it?
It's a typical answer. So your kids are going to be mirroring or parroting what you're doing.
Exactly.
So if you're concerned about your child's mental well-being, their mental health, the first thing I always say to parents, just kind of think about what it would be like being in their shoes, right? What are some of the responses from their loved ones that you would like to receive, right? Would you like to be in the presence of people who are understanding, who hear you out, right? I'm pretty sure no one is going to say, well, I want to be in the presence of someone who diminishes me and reprimands me all the time. So don't take on that approach. So start with yourself. Ask yourself what is something that would be helpful for you. Try them out with your children and ask your children for feedback. So something, for example, is, when mommy is really worried about something, one of the things that really helps me is kind of looking up things on the internet for research purposes, because that helps me feel a little bit more sort of comfortable and confident. Is that something you want to try? So see how I suggested something that helps me, but at the same time, I asked whether it was something that would help them. Right?
Yes.
So this is something that I think is a really good first stepping stone, regardless of whether you have a counseling background or not. So start with yourself, offer your child a suggestion, and if your child has an opinion about it, go with that, right? So that's kind of what I would say, like my short version.
Very good. Yeah. Thank you so much, Miss Katyana. Actually, I do find one more question. Is it okay if you would like to ask
go ahead.
one more? Nur Fatini asked, mobile device addiction, how to identify? I think that's a good question, actually.
It is a good question and very relevant to what's going on right now. So the heartbreaking thing about what's happening is that screen time is actually really bad for kids. And in fact, there are some very, very strict guidelines that we in the sort of the clinical world actually follows. And it's actually not as much as the kids are being required to expose themselves to. And the reason why screen time is so detrimental to children's development is because it is something that promotes instant gratification. So it triggers the part of the brain that is responding to sort of impulsivity. And if you look again at how the human brain or the child brain is continuing to develop and grow, it does create connections in the brain, or sort of like it teaches the brain not so great messages about impulse control, because you have a video game or you have a device that is very efficient in how it works. You can change functions very quickly. You don't have to commit to one task. You can kind of scroll through things.
Yes.
So it is not something that we want our children exposed to so early in the game. So if you do have a child who has a lot of device usage, the one thing in terms of identifying whether they're addicted is whether or not they become very anxious and distressed in the event they don't get access to it. So it's not about time anymore, because the guidelines that we were following before COVID was that children under the age of 2, so 48 months, should not be, 24 months, my math sucks, 24 months, should not be allowed to have any screen time. So no TV, no iPads, no phones before the age of 2. And between the ages of 2 and 5, they should only be getting about 30 minutes to an hour maximum, right? And here we have children who are spending hours and hours and hours a day just because that, school is now online and parents are giving them devices because they have to work themselves.
Yeah.
So moral of the story, screen time is not great for kids. So even though it's convenient and even though they have to use it for school, the minute that school is over, you should be trying to find ways for them to do things without the screen in front of them. And if you have a child that is becoming very agitated or anxious or angry, if they're being told they can't have their devices on them, then you are dealing with a child who might be struggling with a codependency on the device. So we got to start intervening if that's the case.
Yeah. All right, Miss Katyana, that's very good. Thank you so much. And
You're very welcome.
Yeah, so we are going to have our break. But once again, just thank Miss Katyana once again for joining us. We really appreciate your insight. And so for any parents who are listening, if you want to have consultation for your child, please, you can always contact Miss Katyana. I'm sure she's quite fun. I would assume you guys. All right. So thank you so much, Miss Katyana. So everyone, we are going to have another 1-minute break, and then we will have Mr. Aiman talk about how are we going to combat, how are we as parents or teachers necessarily help these children to get through COVID-19 together. So that will be our last session today. Okay, so thank you so much, and bye, Miss Katyana.
Bye.
Bye-bye. All right. So, hello, Mr. Aiman. We see each other again. But let's just be a bit casual here. So, of course, we want to talk more about how can we help children. But I do want to know your experience more as a father dealing with your children at home. How has it been actually for you?
It has been a roller coaster. I would say, for the most part, when you look at everything from a holistic point of view, I kind of feel grateful that I'm able to be at home, watching my kids, looking at my kids. seeing them grow, and yeah, with all the issues and problems that they have affecting me, taking all into consideration, I can't say anything else other than I'm grateful, because before the pandemic, I was traveling a lot, so I had to leave them for an extended period of time. And then when the pandemic hits and MCO was enacted back in March 2020, I had to stay home, right? So my traveling went from 10 to probably one or twice. So that has really put me in a situation where, yes, I'm grateful, like I said before, but then there's this new challenge now, because you now have to balance between working to provide for your family, and also to take care of your family while doing that. And it's
Yeah,
not an
exactly.
easy feat to do. And I've heard many parents say that it's difficult and so on. Depending on how old their children are. My children, they're 6 and 2, but then others probably have homework with primary school, secondary
Yeah.
school, college kids. There are many different challenges at many different levels, right? Depending on where you are right now. So what I can say from my experience is that as parents, I think we can all have solidarity in the fact that it's tough and it sucks. Okay, so we can all say that as parents now. Okay, and the fact that it's tough and it sucks shouldn't make you feel guilty, because this is what it is, right? But it's not an excuse for us, therefore, to do less parenting. If I can say that, less
Yeah,
parenting.
yeah.
These tough times requires more from us for the sake of our kids, and it is hard. It is hard. I am wary of the fact that when I say that, there are parents who are gonna be like, "Apa you tahu?" I know that. I know there are parents who are gonna feel that way, but I still have to say it. Because as tough as it is, this is the job that we sign up for. When we become parents, this is the job that we all sign up for. It's not a buffet where you can pick and choose what you like. It's a package deal. You take on everything, the good, the bad, the ugly, and the beautiful. So this is part of the deal that we sign up for. And this pandemic, although nobody asked for it, it does reveal one thing about ourselves. It reveals our own strength in some cases,
It does, yes.
and inadequacies in other cases. And both are good things. It reveals our strength, showing that, yeah, I can do this. It also reveals our inadequacies, our probably insecurities. And that's also good, because identifying those things are the first step to solving those problems. You have to first notice and admit that you have an issue, you have a problem. Some may have an issue in their marriage, and that affect their children, no doubt. Some may have an issue with their own self, with their own childhood, and pass it down to their own children. And knowing that, understanding that, and realizing that you have a big issue to solve is a good thing for the long run, because that's the first step to healing. But you have to take the first step and continue for other steps. That has been my reflection for the past a year and a half, something like that. And I'm grateful overall.
Yeah, that's great, Mr. Aiman. I think that is a very good insight as a father as well. Because once again, I'm not a parent, but I also kind of understand that there is such a struggle in that kind of sense as well. And one thing as well, let's kind of dive into to be more specific about how children are dealing perhaps in balancing between school and being at home, for example. Even as teachers, actually, we do face a lot of challenges as well, making sure that these children not only are able to learn in class, just like how they learn in physical classes, but to make sure that they also enjoy it. So, but however, one of the challenges of what I realized, especially in the school as well, is the fact that sometimes, of course, we understand that parents are working. They might not necessarily give enough attention to monitor their children's homework, for example. So in your perspective, like how can you, in what way do you think parents can help further to kind of make sure that you have the balance between your work life, but also negotiate more in terms of your children's performance or their well-being at school? Do you have any insights on that? Yeah.
This is something that my wife and I talked about in the beginning of the pandemic. We force ourselves to be up to date with the experts on the pandemic, on what's happening, because like I said before, this thing happens 100 years, once every 100 years. So it's not something that we face every single day. Even the expert, with all their expertise, there too are trying to figure things out. But we look for them for guidance. And one of the things that the experts say is that this is going to be our norm for at least 2 years. 2 years. And this was last year, right? So we have 1 more year to go. So when we heard that it's going to be 2 years, because they estimate the vaccine is going to take some time to develop, a year and a half, and then with the distribution of vaccine, making sure that herd immunity is reached, yada yada yada, it takes a long time. So 2 years. So I sat down with my wife talking about it, because we're very outdoor kind of family. We like to travel, we like to go out, but then with this pandemic, we have to adjust. So I sat down with my wife. We had our family discussion, and we decided, okay, this is going to be our norm for 2 years. So let us prepare mentally. This is what life will be for 2 years.
Yes.
And what that does for us as parents is that it really, in many ways, it calms us down, because now we have a better expectation that fit the situation,
Yes.
a better expectation that fit the situation. So our previous expectation has to be put down, and we had to develop new expectations because situations have changed.
Exactly.
Right?
That is true.
So how we parent our kids also have to change. How we work also have to change. Like right now, for example, as I'm doing this with you, my wife is taking care of our 2 boys. But then when she has to do her work, because she's a teacher, by the way, so when she has to do her work, I take care of the kids, right? So this is something that we have to figure out in our own homes, individually, in our individual families. How do we cater for these changes? Because we have to adapt. The old ways don't work anymore in this new time.
That is true. Yes.
Now, having said that, let me transition into education now, because this is the crux of the matter, right? With education, what do you do, right? You still have the expectation that kids should excel in education. You still have the expectation that kids should get straight A's in education. You still have expectation that kids should pay attention in class. But then, do we take into account the situation we're in right now? The fact that kids have to sit down in front of a screen from morning until afternoon, maybe even further than that.
Yes, exactly.
Just to get an education. This is not the same. This is not the same experience compared to if I were to be with you face to face physically in one location. This is not the same experience. You feel that your body feels different, your emotion feels different, right? The mood feels different. So we have to change our expectation of education. And I'm not talking about like big, like huge policy making stuff, right? I'm talking about in our individual homes. So fathers and mothers, we should sit down together as a family and talk about, okay, what should be our new expectation for our kids? Because understandably, we're stressed out of our minds. There too, same thing.
Yeah,
right?
that is true.
Understanding what we have discussed before with Miss Katyana about empathy, about understanding that this issue is big for them, right? Because this is the issue of a lifetime for them, even though they don't have a mortgage, they don't have a rent. We might say, what are you anxious about? What are you stressed about? You're just a kid. But for them, this is their mortgage. This is their rent. This is the thing that they have to worry about.
That is true. Yes.
So understanding that, then we have to discuss about expectation. And one of the one of the recommendation that I have found very useful from one, I would say, an education expert, even though he doesn't consider himself as such, Ustad Hasrizal Abdul Jamil.
I see.
What
Okay.
he said, I mean, he's studying education now in Finland. So what he said right now about managing expectation is ask your child. You know, your child's like 11, 12, 13, maybe 14, 15, college years. Ask your child. Let them set expectation for themselves. They know themselves. They know that they're probably able to do this much and not beyond that, right? And negotiate with them, right? They set the expectation and you negotiate. Okay, how about this? How about this? So you go back and forth until you find the middle ground where it's win-win. Parents are happy, kids are happy, right? And the expectation may not be the perfect expectation that you set before. Maybe your child will not get straight A's, and that's okay. And that's okay. And even though it's not nice to hear, because then you think about, oh, what about then my son is not going to get a job? My son.
Yeah, exactly.
Which one would you rather prefer? Okay, now I'm speaking like as a parent to a parent. Like, which one would you rather prefer? Your kids having good emotional well-being, but at the same time not doing well at school? Or your kids excel at school, but their emotional well-being is wrecked? Which one would you prefer? Because even though we would love to choose both, we would love that our kids be emotionally healthy and academically excel. We would love to choose both, but look at the situation now. I've received emails and DMs from students, college, university, even some in secondary school, who are telling me that they don't just sit in front of the screen from morning until school is over. They sit beyond that because now they have to work on their assignments, work on their homework, and then help their parents in the house take care of their siblings because parents need to work. And then internet connection is not that well connected. And then gadgets you have to share with your siblings. So effectively, they are living their life 24/7 in front of a screen.
Yes.
I'm guessing right now, whoever owns a spectacle shop, they're having a blast right now.
Yeah, that is true.
That's not good. That's not good. So at home, we can start by managing our expectations of ourselves first and foremost, and for our kids. Because we have to choose, man. We have to choose. We have to prioritize something. Either you prioritize academic excellence or you prioritize emotional well-being. It's good to have both, but in many cases you can't. You got to choose one. So this is a question that I leave to all parents out there. It's not an easy question to answer. Definitely not. But it is a question that has to be answered. That's the point.
Yeah, that's a very good insight, Mr. Aiman. That is true. I do love your point specifically also when you kind of addressed about thinking again about our expectations for these children in terms of their performance, for example. I think not only that it applies for parents, but also it does apply for teachers as well, right? Because sometimes, of course, it's very common for teachers, including myself as well, that sometimes we only want the best for them. So, for example, if suddenly, oh, this is such an easy homework, why aren't they able to do this? You know, and it's very important as well as teachers, even though we all enjoy teaching in general, but it's also important to have that level of empathy as well. Try to understand or reach out to these children or the parents, perhaps what is wrong with them. So yeah, I think leveling the expectations, it is very important for both parents and teachers as well. I do agree on that. And you have a kindergarten in place as well, right? So
yes.
That's a very, for those who don't know.
I opened a branch, Kindergarten. It started in KL. I opened a branch here in Arau Perlis. I did that for my son because I couldn't find a kindergarten that focuses mainly on play. Which is weird, you know, because you would assume that kindergarten is a place where kids play. Because historically speaking, kindergarten, how it came about is for a place where kids play. You can look the history of kindergarten, but then so many kindergartens now are focusing too much on academics, even
That
though
is
we're
true.
talking about like kids below 7, like 4, 5, 6. Even if you look at developmentally speaking, the science is clear on this, that this is the time where they have to socialize and play.
That is true.
I couldn't find a place that focuses on this, so I decided, again, talk with my wife. We discussed, because it's not a small thing to open a kindergarten,
It's a big
right?
thing. Exactly. Yes.
But for the sake of our child, we decided, okay, we need to do this. We waited for a year, by the way. We waited for a year for somebody to open it, like a center like it. It doesn't have to be kindergarten, just a center where my son can just play. That's all I want. Play, all right? It doesn't have to sit down and like write in a book or just look at a piece of blackboard. You just need to play. So we waited for a year, but nothing happened. And then we decided, why don't we make it happen? So we did. So it's been a year and a half, a year plus, a year and 2 months now. So we opened it last year, and then the pandemic happens. We opened it last year, and then boom, pandemic happens. But then, weirdly enough, we realized that because of the pandemic, we realized that this kind of space for kids, especially kids below 7, is more needed now than ever before.
Exactly. Yeah.
So in a way, we're kind of glad that we opened it just before the pandemic, even though we don't ask for it. It just give us the realization that it is an important thing. So kindergarten araw, that's the branch that I opened.
I see. Okay. That's very interesting, Mr. Aiman. And also, just directing, because we already addressed so much on parents, for example, right? So for you as a founder for the kindergarten police as well, is there any philosophy or any type of tips or advice for teachers who are listening here that maybe perhaps they can consider when treating children who are in mentally distressed? Yeah.
For kindergarten level, we're talking about 4, 5, 6-year-old, right? So on that level, what we at kindergarten, not just at my kindergarten, by the way, we're very uniform in the way we think, all kindergarten branches, because we follow the same module, the same idea that the founder, Dr. Putri Afzal Maria, created back in 2014. So it's been a while. It's been a while in Malaysia, like 7 years now.
Yeah.
So I opened it for a year plus, and the one thing that we practice every single day in kindergarten is what Miss Katyana just said just now: emotional validation. Emotional validation.
That is
you should
important.
write it down, highlight it, put it in bold and everything, so that we all understand emotional validation. So how does it look like in practice, right? So in kindergarten, you see the children play, right? And again, if you look at it from the point of view of an adult, you will see children wasting time. That's what you see. That's what you see, because you are looking at them from the adult point of view, right? The adult point of view is that what's productive is for you to sit down, open your workbook and study. For an adult, that's your perspective. But for a child, what you see as wasting time, that's them trying to figure out the world. They're trying to figure out physics, how things happen, how things fall down. They're trying to figure out like the intricacies of social interaction. If I slap my friend cry, I feel bad.
Yeah.
They learn these things through play. Okay. And when things happen, and things always happen in kindergarten, by the way, they get angry, they're happy, they're sad, they're afraid. That's when the adults in the room, we practice emotional validation. Where number one, we make them aware of what they're feeling. We take it out of them, okay? We don't leave the feeling inside. We take it out. We teach them how do you express this feeling. So for kids below 7, what's important for them to know is know how to label those emotions properly. So you see the kid throwing a chair, you tell them that what you did just there, that's called anger.
Yeah.
That's called anger, right? Why is this important? Why is this important, right? It's important because one of the reasons why kids throw a tantrum, and sometimes even adults, one of the reasons why kids throw a tantrum is because they don't know how to tell you how they feel. They just know that they're feeling something, and they know that they have to let it out. And because they don't have the language capacity to explain to you how they feel, they show you how they feel. That's why they throw the chair. Right? So our job at that moment is to help them express how they feel by labeling the emotion properly. And then the next time they feel angry, they can just come to us and say, I feel angry. Fine. It's better than throwing a chair. And I experienced that firsthand with my son when my son was I think 2 years or 2 years plus. I can't remember, but he was 2, right? He didn't have the language capacity yet. So this is the time when he usually throw a tantrum. I remember going to the supermarket here in Perlis. We don't call it a mall because we don't have one. So sorry, KL people, yeah? We don't have a mall here. So I went to the supermarket to buy groceries. So I went in with my son. He was 2 at the time. And then I went to the checkout counter to pay for the stuff. And then he saw, all the chocolates, the candies, they put it near the checkout counter, right? So he saw that. And we're pretty strict when it comes to sweets, right? You can only have it once in a while, but not all the time.
A certain intake, yes.
Yeah. So at that point, it's no candy. So I said no. And guess what? He threw a tantrum right there in the middle of the market. And he even went physical with me. He punched me, and then so I know that he's like that. So I quickly, take off my glasses, number one, put it in my pocket, and I just hugged him really tightly and just walked out. Okay, I left the groceries. I didn't pay for them. I left it there. I'll buy them later on. I walked out. Go straight to my car, and as I walked out, all the way, he was screaming, yelling, hitting at me. Like everybody in the supermarket know who I am that day. I walked to the car, put it in the car seat, and I drove for 5 minutes, and he fell asleep. So probably he's tired. That's why he threw a tantrum. But that's the idea for kids, right? For kids. But if you observe closely, it's not that far-fetched to extrapolate the experience with kids with experience for say 17-year-old, right? Because you have primary school students, secondary school students, even university students who they don't know how to express this feeling, probably because they weren't educated how to express those feelings.
Yes,
probably because they were taught to just suppress it. Right? Like what Katyana said, in our Asian culture, unfortunately, we like to just suppress feelings, right? When your child cries, you say, jangan nangis, malu tu, tengok tu, malu tu. We use shame here, right? Look at that child. That child's not crying, but you're crying. So we use shame. That's shame. Okay. And another famous tactic is look at that uncle. The uncle will be angry if you cry. We use fear and shame. Right? Typical tactics, because that will produce fast results, right? Instant gratification. Instant gratification. Yes, it produces fast results, but with long-term detrimental consequence. And one of them is you will see college kids, university kids who are stressed out of their minds, but they don't know how to express it because they're so used to suppressing it. And you probably have it in your school as well. Kids who don't know how to express it, so they suppress it. They don't know how to express, so they suppress. So what can we do as parents and also teachers? Help them express those feelings properly, right? You can even use this simple techniques that we use in kindergarten, because if you haven't tried it now, it's probably the best time to do it lah. Better late than never.
Yeah,
so
that is true.
Help them label their emotion, right? Even though they're 17, right? Validate their emotion. So what you're feeling right now is anger. You're angry at something, right?
Yeah.
Right? So validate their emotion. Don't feel like, you know what, somebody somewhere out there are having a much tougher time than you, that will totally shut them down and they will not open up to you anymore. Right? And you might wonder why my son, why my daughter doesn't open up to me. Probably because they did, but then they were turned down.
Exactly. Yeah, that's normally the case.
So when you have like other outlets like TikTok, Facebook, Twitter, now you have Clubhouse, whatever that means, and you have all these outlets that they can use.
Yes.
Don't be surprised when your kids post on those platforms how they feel, because they don't feel safe opening up at home. They open up on social media, and trust me, that's not a safer place. But because they don't know where else to go. The thing about feelings with human beings is that you can't just keep it in. Feelings are not meant to be kept in a container. We're not built for that. You have to let it out, right? Adults, teenagers, kids, children, everyone, they can't keep it in. You have to let it out. But what we worry is that the way they let it out, we worry that it might not be the best way.
Exactly.
And
yes.
I like what you said before. Teachers want the best for their students. Parents want the best for their children. I like that statement because there is a dilemma there. The dilemma is this. Are you sure that you're thinking about what's best for your kids? Or are you thinking about what's best for you?
That is true. Yeah.
It's hard to digest that. Because obviously you want to take care of your ego, so you say, of course I want to have the best for my kids. But if you be honest with yourself, probably you will discover something ugly that you are avoiding all this while. Probably that you are thinking about what's best for me. It's best for me if my kid gets straight A's. It's best for me if my kid becomes the best student in school. It's best for me. But is it best for your child?
Yeah.
Right? It's something that we all as parents have to be, like collectively, all of us have to be wary about. Like I think about that every single day. Do I just think about what's best for me? It's best for me if my son just shut up, right? Just let me work. It's best for me. I know that, but it's not best for him. He needs to play. He needs to explore. He needs to jump around. He needs to scream, yell. He needs to do that.
True.
It's his time. It's an age-appropriate activity for him to do. So what's best for me may not be what's best for my child. It's possible that the best thing that our child needs right now is the worst thing for us.
Yeah.
But because, without having to say it, because we love our child so much, because we love our children so much, and because we sign up for this job that is going to be the job for the rest of our lives, we're okay with that.
Yeah,
it's okay
exactly.
if I get the worst end of the stick and my children get the best one, because at the end of the day, it's for them, right? I didn't mean to be all sappy at the end, but it's the truth. It's the truth. It's tough, it's tough being a parent at whatever age your child is. It's tough. So we all have solidarity in that. But this is the job that we signed up for.
Just me listening to what you said made me a bit touched as well. I'm like, okay, this is something to really think about for everyone. Like it's very important sometimes, even as adults who are listening to this as well, to just really reflect on your intentions. And of course, we are talking about the mental well-being of a child. It's very different for them to express. Sometimes they don't really have a platform. They don't feel safe, as what you mentioned before, right? So again, the reason why we're doing this session in the first place is kind of to raise awareness in parents and teachers, to make sure that you're not really building a wall that shouldn't be there when it comes to letting children reach out to you. Yeah, so thank you so much, Mr. Aiman. And we are coming to the end of our session for today, unfortunately. So one thing though, I've already seen one interesting question here. So for now, for anyone who is listening, if you have any questions, please feel free to comment. And we're just going to begin with the first one here. So this is from Mr. Afnan Shafiq. So this one, the question is asking, loneliness is considered as a key risk factor of lockdown for the mental health and well-being of children. How to encounter child loneliness? Yeah, I think that's a very good question.
That's a very good question. Now, loneliness, I mean, the pandemic doesn't cause loneliness. Let's be clear. The pandemic doesn't cause loneliness. Yes, we are physically isolating ourselves, but it doesn't mean that therefore we are cutting away the human connection between us. Loneliness is the absence of human connection. That's loneliness. Loneliness is not being alone in your room. All right? You can be alone in your room, but you feel connected with people. Okay? So just because somebody is alone in a room, isolated, right? Because right now we were practicing COVID-19 safety guidelines, it doesn't mean that you feel lonely. Loneliness is a feeling, is the emotion that you feel. You can be, I mean, if let's say there's no pandemic right now, you could be in the middle of a stadium full of people and feel lonely. Right? Loneliness is the absence of human connection, and human connection is not deterred by the pandemic. Okay, just because we are physically isolating ourselves doesn't mean that therefore we don't have human connection. No, human connection goes beyond physical. It's emotional, it's intellectual, right? So for kids, if you want to avoid child loneliness, connect with them on an emotional deep level beyond just physical. Connect with them, right? So that's how you can overcome the feeling of loneliness in a child. So first, try to change the way we see loneliness. If you see somebody walking alone, it doesn't mean he's lonely. It doesn't mean she's lonely. That person is just walking alone physically. But that person could be the happiest person in the world because she's so connected with the people around him or her, right? So it's not a physical thing, loneliness. It's an emotional thing. So sometimes you can see a person surrounded by his friends, but then he comes up to you and say, I feel lonely. And you can't make sense of it. Like, you're lonely, you're surrounded by your friends. That's not because he's physically around people. It's because he's not connecting with any of them.
Yeah.
Right. And I think the first thing we have to look at when it comes to this is our family. Because a child, the primary social environment for a child is the family. Right? The family. So make sure in your family you are properly emotionally connected with each other. Okay? That's how you combat loneliness in a child.
True. Thank you so much, Mr. Aiman. And that's pretty much it, actually. I've looked at the questions, and I think most of them have already been answered. And so we have reached the end for our session for today. First of all, we want to thank Mr. Aiman for being a part of this. It's a great pleasure to be able to speak with you. And for those who don't know, just mentioning, I was once a listener. Mr. Aiman has given a speech in my MRSM. It was in around 2014, I believe. So I really look up to you, Mr. Aiman. It is actually a privilege to be able to speak with you today. And thank you so much. And for parents, for Brighton, if you guys are listening here for today, if you have any feedback or anything that you would want to highlight for our school, just let us know. Okay, so that's pretty much it. So thank you so much, everyone. And bye, Mr. Azlan. Mr. Aiman.
Assalamualaikum. Bye.
Bye.